I know there are going to be people that try to claim that Coraline isn't a horror movie and therefore I can't cover it here on my horror channel, and I'd just like to remind those people before we get started here a few of the things that happen in Coraline. Roll the clips. Yeah. Horror movie. There are also references to a couple of the most well-known horror movies of all time, so stick around to the end of this video if you want to hear about them. Before we get into the truly creepy stuff, there are a few things you missed at the beginning of the movie, where the filmmakers just couldn't help but calling attention to themselves. Coraline's family is moving into their new home with the help of the Ranch Brothers moving company, and we end up seeing the Ranch Brothers whose name tags read Jerome and Joe. This is a reference to the real-life Ranch Brothers, who are a pair of character sculptors in many great animated films. And while they don't sculpt any characters in Coraline, they did work on director Henry Selick's previous stop-motion film, James and the Giant Peach. So naturally, they graffitied the words "Stop Mo Rules" on their own truck. And when Joe receives a tip for his moving services, the photo of George Washington on the bill has been replaced by that of the director Henry Selick. The moving truck is also green, and the first time we see it, it's pulled up next to the house, which is covered in pink. In the novella, one of the things that Coraline finds off-putting about the other world beyond the door is the way that her bedroom is painted in shades of green and pink. But the movie does a great job of showing us how Coraline found her world to be dreary and boring in ways that the novella was not able to. Take these two scenes in the garden, for example, where the real world is made to look damp and devoid of color, while the other world is bursting with life and colors. The film also introduces details that the novella lacked, like the fact that her parents in the real world are gardeners, or at least they write about gardening, and her other mother is eventually revealed to be a predatory-like insect creature. Insects are the natural enemy of gardeners. Throughout the movie, you can spot plenty of clues pointing to this insect motif, and like her two sets of parents, most of them come in pairs. Examples include the dragonfly pin on Coraline's hair and the dragonfly decorations over her bed, the mantis tractor that her other father rides, and the mantis picture frame holder by Coraline's bed, the fact that the family drives a Volkswagen Beetle, and the chocolate beetles that her other mother snacks on, and the picture of the boy in the other drawing room is in a spider picture frame, and Coraline ends up fighting the other mother on a giant spider web. I also think there's something to be said about the fact that the other mother created this world as a trap to capture Coraline's soul. It's not a big world, but as one line in the book puts it, spiders' webs only have to be large enough to catch flies. She crafted this world and tries to trap Coraline by sewing together the doll as bait, and she sews buttons onto the eyes of all of her victims. So there's a comparison to be made with spiders who weave their webs from a string in a very similar manner. And of course, her final form most closely resembles a giant spider. And that's not the first time we've covered something like that. I also found an interesting piece of text on her father's computer screen right before Coraline accidentally turns off the power. If you pause at just the right moment, it reads, "Everything is smelling like success from out of the cove. A slime-colored blob crawls out of your compost containing something, falls to the ground." It reminds me a lot of the scariest scene from the book, where Coraline discovers an underground cellar which she comments has a strange smell, and finds a creature that had almost no features on its face, which had puffed and swollen like risen bread dough. There seem to be a lot of similarities between these two descriptions. We soon find out that the other mother is in control of everything in the other world. She's referred to as a beldam.
And shush, for the beldam might be listening.
Which traces back to an old French word meaning old woman or witch. Coraline has to fight witchcraft with witchcraft. She uses this stone, which is known in our world as an adder stone or witch stone, to locate the ghost children's eyes, and at the beginning of the movie she uses a branch of poison oak as a dowsing rod, and her neighbor Wybie accuses her of witchcraft.
I heard about water witching before, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's just an ordinary branch.
We're first given the idea that the beldam is in control when Coraline meets her other father and he plays her a song on the piano, but the piano is the one controlling him, not the other way around. It does this by taking control of his hands, and the other mother's hands being in control becomes another motif seen time and time again in the movie. The reason for this is because in the novella, when Coraline and the other mother make the wager, other mother agrees to let Coraline go if she wins and swears on her mother's grave that she'll keep her word. But that's not good enough for Coraline, so she also swears on her right hand, and there are a ton of references to that hand in the movie. When Coraline discovers the other world's garden, other father has this to say.
Mother said you'd like it, or she knows you like the back of her hand.
There are also several close-ups of other mother's hands throughout the movie, even before her hand is detached. We also see several other images that resemble the true form of other mother's hands, like the lightning strike outside the window, clouds that parched to reveal the moon after her defeat, and the tea leaves that Miss Spinks interprets as a sign of danger in Coraline's tea. On the contrary, Ms. Forcible reads the tea leaves upside down and sees them as a giraffe, which may be a clue about her eventually becoming trapped in the other world where there's a giraffe toy in Coraline's room. Or maybe it's actually a clue about the true form of her enemy, whose neck extends like that of a giraffe. Or maybe it's actually a clue about where Coraline's parents are hidden, in the snow globe from the zoo, because giraffes are an animal that you'd find at the zoo. I don't know, it's gotta be one of those, okay? Coraline's main quest in the movie is to retrieve the eyes of the 3 ghost children and find her parents. And although Coraline never knew that any children had gone missing in the house until later, there are some clues early on in the movie. Actually, the first thing we see is the repurposing of the doll resembling Mrs. Lovat's sister. Then when Coraline explores the house on the rainy day, she discovers what she calls a painfully boring portrait of the little boy who seems to be the ghost boy that once lived there.
One boring blue boy in a painfully boring painting.
And finally, Other Mother has pictures of 3 children on her own kitchen wall, 2 girls and 1 boy, just like the 3 ghosts. In the book, Coraline's favorite hobby is being an explorer, and that's true in the movie as well. The carpet in the drawing room is an image of a compass. Another difference from the book is in the clothes that Coraline changes into in the other realm. In the movie, it's a shirt with stars on it. After sending the Other Mother's hand down the well, Coraline has the following thought about the stars. Someone had once told her that if you look up at the sky from the bottom of a mine shaft, even in the brightest of daylight, you see a night sky and stars. Coraline wondered if the hand could see stars from where it was.
It's supposed to be so deep. If you fell to the bottom and looked up, you see a sky full of stars in the middle of the day.
So Coraline wears that shirt while she's trapped in the other realm. Her situation is bleak, just like being stuck at the bottom of the well. Now, if all of this was not enough horror for you, then let me point out a couple of horror movie references that I found in Coraline. The first is pretty obscure, but the chair in Coraline's other room has the same design as Jack Torrance's chair from The Shining. The other can be spotted after she escapes from the other world, where her father is playing with the squid toy on her bed in exactly the same way that the facehugger xenomorph attacks its victims in Alien. And if that doesn't convince you that this is a horror movie, I don't know what will. So that covers the movie adaptation of Coraline, but there's so much more to analyze in this story, so coming up on Horror History, I'll be covering the scariest details that were left out of the movie, as I talk about Coraline Jones and the Other Mother. You don't want to miss out on that, so make sure you're subscribed to CZsWorld for new horrors every week. Ring that death bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.